So apparently a Chinese mobile phone manufacturer can design a really good looking car. You might say that this is stolen from a Ferrari Puro Sangue. Wait, how the hell do I pronounce this?
Ferrari Puro Sangue.
But if you consider the fact that some people say that the Ferrari Lasagna is stolen from a Mazda MX-30, I don't really think that we need to discuss about the exterior design of the Xiaomi. And before we go ahead and discuss about the quality and the price of the car, we will start with chapter 1, setting up the car blueprints. For the car blueprints, it does not matter if this is a Ferrari, a Xiaomi or a Mazda. I will just go ahead and type in the dimensions of the car into the dimensions of the cube. In the next step, I will insert the blueprint and first align the side view to the outline of the cube, and after aligning the front, the back and the top view as well, the blueprints are already set up correctly and we can move on to chapter 2. The car body. So with a new cube that I've added into the scene and have merged at the center to be left with only one single vertex, I have started to model the hood. And after I have only placed 3 vertices, I was already lost on how to continue on the hood, as the shape was actually really complicated. And as I could not find the line that I had to trace down from the hood all the way to the headlights, I have duplicated a vertex and started from the headlight itself. And as I even then could not figure out on how to connect the headlight to the hood, I first traced down the wheel arch. At some point I have added in a line that I needed at the beginning, but this was more like a guess than a real blueprint line, but it actually has worked. Then I have filled in the rest of the faces on the hood and have aligned all of the vertices onto the blueprint line. By pressing K, I have enabled the knife tool and have cut out this area right here. I moved some of the vertices down and then just simply deleted both of these faces right here to create the air intake. And by the way, if you're at this point interested in how to create a complete low poly car in Blender, you can go ahead and check out my full step-by-step guide with the first link in my description. I then continued my work at the front of the car by creating the front bumper, and this area was a little bit easier to create than the hood, but it actually has a really good design in my opinion. So with the car body parts at the front already finished, I've started to work on the side of the car by creating the front door, and by the air intake at the front door or whatever this is, you can really tell that this is not a low budget car. But still, in China this car gets sold for around 40,000 euros, which is way cheaper than some other electric SUVs from other car manufacturers. But not only the front door feels like this, but also the back door, as the back door reminds me of some really sporty cars like an Audi R6 for example, just because of all of the detail that you can find on the back door and the fact that it gets really right at the back. So once the back door was finished, I started to work on the roof of the car so that I can use the vertices from the top of the car to create the C-pillar at the back. But as the roof of the car mainly consists out of a window, there was actually not that much to model for the car body. So with that I could connect the top to the back, and with that done I started to work on the trunk area. This area was way harder to create than it should be, just because on the blueprint the area was looking very long, but by judging from the reference images this area was very short. Therefore I have mainly modeled the back with the reference images only, as the blueprint was for nothing to use. But with the main trunk area already finished, I could go ahead and start to create the back bumper, and this one was a little bit easier as the blueprint lines that I got were very accurate, and by using the basic modeling techniques I could go ahead and fill in all of the faces. I have then quickly checked the normals and I fixed them up by pressing Shift and N, and then I have shared some progress pictures inside of my Discord server, so if you're into 3D modeling and especially into 3D car modeling, you can go ahead and join the Discord community with the link in my description. So at this point the main part of the car body was finished and I've started with chapter 3. The materials. And as only the car body was finished at this point right here, I of course first created a paint material, and as I had none other materials to create, I started with chapter 4, the black parts. For the first black part I have duplicated these outline vertices right here with Shift and D and have separated them into a new object by pressing P, and then to create the vent itself I have inserted the faces and have extruded them back on the Y-axis. Then I focused on the front wheel arch, and this one was actually a little bit harder to create than a basic wheel arch, as this wheel arch had basically 2 dimensions, for which I've added in a loop cut. The front bumper was not too complicated, but it was not too easy either, and I first created everything inside of the black parts and then only later separated it to apply the other materials. At this point the front was almost finished, only the front spoiler was left to create. The back wheel arch was not a problem anymore because I've already created the front one with the same technique, and one part that I actually mislike about this car is the amount of plastic that I have used. Actually, I'm not too sure if this is plastic, but the fact that this is not part of the car body makes it look like plastic to me. At first the back bumper was just a big black plastic part, but this car body part really saved the black bumper in my opinion, and after aligning all of these vertices right here completely manually, I applied the right materials to the back bumper and finished it off with some last couple faces. At this part I still had a big hole in the back of the car, therefore I have started with chapter 5, the taillights. I filled in the back face and have inserted it, and as this has not worked too good, I had to move a lot of vertices by hand. After a couple of minutes I could go ahead and add in some depth to the taillights, and with these outline vertices I could fill in the last gap of the car body. Also, I didn't completely finish the taillights as I only created the transparent part and first wanted to fill in bigger gaps like the one at the roof. And at the roof I also had to create this part right here, which I think is for the autonomic driving system. And after creating the base shape I could just go ahead and add in a bevel, and this was looking very good like this. Then I quickly created the vent at the hood and then focused again on the side air intake at the front door. I first created this black part at the top and then actually spent quite a lot of time creating this inner area right here just to add in a little bit of detail. And with this done, I moved on to chapter 6, the windows. First I duplicated off the outline vertices to create a black frame. With some depth added to it, I created the A, the B and the C pillar, and then in the last step I have created of the 3 windows. Again I had to add in the right materials and also create some new ones, and then I quickly created the windshield, the area for the windshield wipers, and then focus on the back window, for which I first needed to create the spoiler at the back, and this again is a part that you definitely do not see on low budget cars. Without using a solidify modifier I have manually added in some thickness to this part, then at some point I again checked the face orientation and had to fix up a couple of things, but then was able to create the back window. For the windows I have then also added in the black frame by cutting it out with the knife tool by pressing K. And with the new material this was looking really sick, so I also did the same at the back. And after this I have started with chapter 7, the side mirrors. The side mirrors do actually look quite cheap on this car, but if you would ask me how an expensive side mirror looks like, I would have no idea what to answer. Another thing that I have noticed is that the side mirror was basically a sphere, so the top and the bottom was created basically the same, and the side mirror was finished only a couple minutes after I have started it. And after finishing off the side mirror I continued with chapter 8, the headlights. To start this off, I duplicated all of the outline vertices and then started with the top part, as the top part only had one single light. I've also created the space for the bottom, but first focused on the LED bar in the middle, then created the single light bulb at the top, duplicated it down to the bottom, and then also created the low beam headlight. I have duplicated this one too to the left side to also create the high beam headlight, and after adding in all of the materials the headlights were already finished. I then wanted to create the taillights but noticed that I had forgotten to model the spoiler, so I quickly recreated this one. And then after this I could again focus on the taillights, and as we have already created the transparent part for the taillights, I could just duplicate the faces that we already had to create the low beam headlight. I have also recreated some indicators, but as I have no idea on where they are in the real car, I have just created my own ones. With this, the taillights were finished and we can move on to chapter 9, the details. Actually, there were not too many details on this car, so the one detail that I've added in is the door handle, which actually isn't a door handle. And as this is already it for the details, I have also created the underbody for this car. Then there's only one chapter left, chapter 10. The wheels. With a new edit in circle, I first tried to recreate the rim, therefore I have only modeled one part of the rim, which I could then go ahead and duplicate all around the middle point to get a complete rim at the end. Then I quickly created a basic tire, created a basic brake disc, and have copy and pasted in a basic brake caliper model. With this, the model was finished and we can move on to chapter 11, the renderings. I do have to say that I have forgotten to add in some car panel gaps, but I don't think that this would have made much of a difference. As a conclusion I can say that I actually think that this car is looking very sick, and the quality doesn't seem too bad, and the price is very affordable. If you're now at this point interested in how to create a complete low poly car for yourself, you can go ahead and check out the first link in my description, where I will go ahead and guide you through every step you need, from setting up the car blueprints to the final render. And I would also recommend you to join our Discord community, as we are now launching an event which is called Around the World. In the first episode of the series, we're going to make a stop in Italy, so if you're interested in modeling some Italian cars with some other people to make the biggest progress that you have made in the last couple of years, you're highly welcomed to join this community. Now my kings and queens, I wish you all the best for the future, and we will see us in the next video.